You're watching our special coverage of the Trump takeover and what it means for India. The Trump era, will it mean advantage for India, and which are the areas where that advantage could actually play out? Let's now get in our guests this evening. Joining me on the show is John Rossomando, who's a commentator on U.S. national security. Arun Aggarwal, who's the CEO of Dallas-based conglomerate Next. He's also the co-chair of the Indian-American CEO Council. And we have Fabiana Zangara, who is an immigration attorney, joining me from New York. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking out the time and speaking to me. And, I would like to start actually with the woman on the panel. Fabiana, let me start by asking you about, every second sentence that Donald Trump actually spoke in the last 1 year was about deportation, was about immigration. Tell us, how many calls are you getting about people who are now exploring their options? How could it turn out from here? And is it really now going to be a very clear road to deportation, or are there legal safeguards for people there?
So thank you so much for having me. That's an interesting question. As you were saying, we received so many calls because everybody is concerned about what Trump is talking about and about what is going to happen in the next few months. Honestly, it's hard to predict what actions he will take, even though it's we can predict some of them. Most likely, he will try to reshape the policies under the Biden administration, and most likely, the goal would be to undo and hand some of the policies under the Biden administration. So, for example, there are some policies that allows citizens from some countries to come here legally under the parole program, provided that they have a sponsor in the United States. So from what we are hearing so far, most likely Trump will try to hand those policies and restate some of the policies that were implemented during the first Trump administration. Like, for example, the Remain in Mexico policy, which allows citizens that are foreign citizens that are awaiting for their asylum case to wait in Mexico until a hearing will be scheduled. Now, it's hard to predict whether those policies that were implemented during the Trump administration will be re-implemented again, because this, of course, means some kind of diplomatic.
I remember he'd also put in a ban. He'd put in a ban, and it was predominantly for Muslim majority nations, and it was struck down by the Supreme Court. That was part of a series of measures he had taken then. But before we get into those questions, Fabiana, the other thing I want to ask, and then I get in the two gentlemen as well, which is that, are there legal safeguards in place, or is it going to be a one-way journey for these illegal immigrants, because they're very large in number, and there are also many human rights concerns that have been raised for them?
Of course, there are definitely measures in place. Again, it's hard to predict what would be the best course of action right now, because first we have to see what kind of actions Trump will take in order to determine how to proceed. But definitely the system will be implemented to protect the rights of those immigrants, and especially for the families, because right now what Trump is promising on one hand is for example, for even minors that are U.S. citizens that are here, provided that they have illegal immigrants, that illegal parents that are going to be deported, perhaps this may have some kind of negative impact on those U.S. citizens as well. So again, it's hard to predict how to proceed right now, but definitely there are measures in place, and the system will work in order to protect the rights of those U.S. citizens.
All right. So let's see how soon action will be taken, and whether it will be token or whether it will be large in scale in its nature. John, let me ask you then about the national security aspect of Trump 2.0. What, according to you, would be his first priority areas? There's everything from Russia to China to North Korea to Iran. But in your assessment, what could be his priority areas as he gets into Oval Office, his first couple of decisions?
Well, one of the things that's been talked about a lot is ending the war in Ukraine. President Trump is floating the idea of imposing some sort of division of Ukraine along the current lines of fighting, and also putting, I guess, in the drawer the idea of Ukraine ever joining NATO as a way to get Vladimir Putin to the table. Another major issue signaled by the appointment of Elbridge Colby as the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy is a focus on deterring China. China is a mutual enemy of both the United States and India. So I would anticipate increased reliance on India as a bulwark against China and Asia, and effort to improve the frosty relations between the United States and India that existed in the prior administration.
All right, Arun Aggarwal, I was speaking to Mr. Arun Singh a short while back. He's been India's ambassador to the U.S. And the one thing he said was that Trump's teams, that is the economic team and his national security team, are really going to be at loggerheads to decide how much he wants to take on China, how much he wants to do business with China. Talk to us about where does business priorities lie for the next president, and how will that really shape America's relationship and ties with some of the other leading economies?
Thank you, first of all, Gaurie, for having me here. And I think I see. First of all, I think I'm here in Washington D.C. and the environment, the energy on the street is amazing. I think the common man. I'm not talking only. Talking to a Uber driver, to a restaurant server. They really feel country is going to do something massive in next 4 years. So it's exciting to see that and be part of it. Now, coming to your question, I think we are always using China and India in same sentence with the President Trump 2.0 administration. While it's very, very critical, but India has created and carved its own path. And I think if we stand on our own strengths and don't just see that every time have to be compared with the China, I think we'll achieve really some amazing results. The supply chain world is going to get a great shakeup under Trump 2.0.
No, this is not about comparison. Let me just clarify that. This is not about comparison or having India, China in the same sentence. Arun, this is about being able to identify those areas where there will be greater cooperation, and that how it will raise new opportunities for India. That's the whole point I'm asking. If there is greater conflict and contestation and confrontation between US and China, will that throw up more opportunities for India?
Goes without saying. And, I have been part of the US retail system as my professional career. And they are seeing handwriting. I think every organization here is seeing handwriting on the wall. They proactively are trying to, as I said, supply chain is going to disrupt for sure. And they proactively, first of all, they are trying to get a de-risk China strategy. And India is going to be the major beneficiary if they really can seize on the opportunity. Of course, the competition comes from countries like Vietnam in terms of, the emerging Latin American, some of the economies, Mexico, because sometimes, they are easier for even the big Chinese manufacturer to move. Last time when this onslaught happened on China, I think the major Chinese manufacturer, they moved to Vietnam when Vietnam was opening. So India did benefit slightly, but they could not seize on the opportunity.
Sure.
But today India is further ahead in the infrastructure and the way we are going.
Yes.
So definitely, I think India can be a huge beneficiary of what's going to happen.
I think some of that could also be driven by Quad, where supply chains could become a focus area. John, let me then bring you in as far as we talked about national security, when you spoke about Russia, Ukraine. I want to then draw your attention to West Asia. Donald Trump in the last 48 hours has really spoken several times that it was his threat that actually led to the hostages being released, the ceasefire being signed, and so on and so forth. How do you see him and his stamp on America's West Asia policy, particularly regarding Iran, going forward?
Well, I think that we're going to see a return to the maximum pressure on Iran. I think that you might see an increased cooperation with the anti-communist opposition inside Iran. I think that you'll see it's definite. If you look at what was done with Gaza, everyone in the Middle East is saying that this was because of Donald Trump's actions. I mean, whether you want to talk about who the winners and the losers are in this particular policy decision, it just shows that Donald Trump stands along the world like a colossus, and nobody's going to challenge him in any major way. And the fact that this is happening is not even president.
Let me come in there. You mentioned challenge. I think the one thing that he's really going on challenging is Greenland, and also talking about Panama Canal and Canada. Those are the three challenges he's been talking at length about in the last 2 months or so. And let me put that graphic out for our viewers to really understand the significance of it, what he's been saying, why it matters. But I want to understand from you, are these empty threats? Do you see them actually, culminating into some sort of U.S. policy, or are they just negotiating tactics for the next president?
I think when it comes to Canada, this is all psychological warfare on Trump's part on the Canadians, considering that we have serious issues related to immigration with Canada. We have serious issues related to manufacturing, and Trump's belief that Canada takes more from the United States than it gives to the relationship. So I think that that's a negotiating tactic. But when it comes to Greenland, he's trying to gain sovereignty over the minerals underneath the Greenland ice sheet. We already have bases there and so forth, but this is all about keeping China and possibly Russia from gaining control of all those resources. And then with the Panama Canal, which 80% of the traffic is American, and Trump believes that there's a threat whereby the Chinese People's Liberation Army could gain control of the operation of the canal.
Indeed. Arun Aggarwal, you want to come in on some of these expansionist threats from the fact that they are bound to have an impact on investor climate, global investment summit, and investor summit as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Gaurie. I think, as John rightly said, some of these are the narratives like Greenland. It definitely is of strategic interest to U.S. because of the minerals and the way China is expanding, their base everywhere in terms of getting rights to the minerals. So it definitely, changes. Now, are they Canada? Will that happen? I think, it's a great idea, but I think the relationship thawed under the last Canadian administration. So there'll be a new administration there. So I'm sure they would want an alignment with USA, and that will change some of it. And given that, I think again, and good thing is, I think, India is very well placed now, if I put that all together as well.
Yes.
Because I think that, India did not have a very cordial relationship with Canada during this time as well.
Yes.
And US being a good partner and a strong partner and relationship between Prime Minister Modi and Trump, that can help us globally.
Indeed.
Immensely.
Indeed. I'm running out of time, but very quick comment, Fabiana, from you as we wrap things up. You are in New York. It's a deep blue state. Do you see immigration becoming a conflict between the blue and the red states, between Democrats and Republicans going forward? Or is it going to be all about presidential orders bypassing any other rules?
That's a great question. I think it's not going to become definitely it's something that is going to trigger emotions on both sides. It's going to be definitely about executive orders and like what President Trump will decide, but also it's going to be about rights, and it's going to be about like the legal system that is in place. So it's going to be
Yes.
interesting to see how
Yes.
those two components are going to mix, like the executive orders and the legal system that is in place to protect the rights of those immigrants.
All right. Okay, we leave it there. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me in this very special edition of India Global, the Trump takeover, as we've talked about. The implications of this, it's just started. Well, over the next course of next months, weeks, we will keep decoding what it means for India and for our interests. Thank you so much for watching.